Evans, you can sit here. Headphones, do you have the nice ones? Lazima abuniwe tume. Oh. Sheria. Oh. Sheria. Sheria. Mwananchi, tabia zako ziko chini, unapenda kulipa hongo na kutumia njia za uongo, una mipango na hata watoto wa kando, haujui hata majina yao. Kura yako uliuza maini figo, ukakulia hadi dini, kisha wasema tukuthamini, na wewe hapo hauaminiki, na wewe hapo haupangiki.
Wapi kidero when you need to slap somebody? Complain ufisadi kwani ulidhani t-shirt 50 bob leso siku ya campaign ilikuwa free? Ni 5 year loan investment utalipa kingia parliament. We are one, amani we are one. Na utumishi kwa wote, utu missing CCTV we were watching. Racial insecurity na job opportunity ni kama mti ya kibiriti. Side moja heavy, usiniambie Kenya kuna umaskini, kwani hizi fat fingers zinaibia nane? Maskando ina threaten our survival. Media define leadership, na sura ukiaka front page na improve readership. Ambia wase wa Twitter wa hashtag hii ama hash reality doesn't make a good TT. Commission of inquiry wanakula commission bila kutupa ukweli, ni kubaya. Baka kukiwa kuzuri unashindwa nini mbaya. Machozi ya perpetrator ineza dilute damu ya victim ilimwagika. After all is said and done, all will be said, nothing will be done. You're not my tribe, but you're my blood type. Like it doesn't have to take tragedy to know that.
Sheria.
Yes. This is Sheria Dive right here. It's Saturday. Saturday is a favorite day of the week on this radio station because we get to have this fantastic, amazing show. And hapa ni kujisifu manze. Even though tuna operate, this is Sheria Dive right here where we talk legal with me, James WaNjeri. And today I'm in studio with some amazing people, fantastic people. You know, there are people who do a lot of things in this country and we never really get to hear about it. And today I'm so proud of the fact that you get to hear the stories of these individuals that we have in studio and the work they've actually been doing in promoting and upholding the Constitution of Kenya. We're going to be talking about their work, their journey in their career. How is it that they find even the strength to do what they do? So this week on the 27th of August, we commemorated the 14th anniversary of the Constitution of Kenya. It was the first time I voted, I remember. And it was very exciting to vote yes. And last week, we spoke about the old Constitution, some of the differences that were there between the old Constitution and the new Constitution. And on Monday, we also spoke about some of the fears that had been expressed by those in the No coalition in 2010 against the Constitution. Of course, the Constitution passed. We also spoke about some of the cases, like the case of Mary Arivitsa, cases to try and stop the promulgation of the Constitution. Some of those hurdles had to be overcome. However, now we are in the post-Constitution phase. How is the Constitution of Kenya holding up with regards to the provisions it creates? Are we actually, are we meeting the moment as a country? And has the promise of Kenya's 2010 Constitution been realized? That's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm joined in studio by some amazing people. I'm going to be introducing them to you. But of course, just to give you some news about what's been happening, did you hear the president say that no abductions happened? Oh my God, guys, I think we've been living in a different reality. All these stories that watu wanapigwa risasi, hizo ni stories zenyu bana. Hizo ni stories za jaba. Kenyans, you've been asleep. You need to wake up and join the president in his reality, where no abductions happened. And he has actually said, if you are abducted, go and report to the police that abducted you, and action will be taken by the same police that abducted you against the police that abducted you, but you are not actually abducted in the first place, okay? That's the president of Kenya, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we are. Of course, on the anniversary of the Constitution, none of the three arms of government actually held any celebrations to usher in that anniversary. But instead, we had the executive arm of government presenting Raila Odinga's candidature to the Africa Union Commission, joined by heads of states from East Africa. And I think Rwanda's Minister of Foreign Affairs was here as well. Maybe we are going to be talking about that in a short while. Should we be catching feelings? That's what I will be asking my guests today. Should we be catching feelings that even the judiciary did not actually commemorate this? And you know, our judiciary has even had prayer days. We've had prayer and fasting. We've gone for funerals where we suspended proceedings in courts to be able to do some of these things. So what's happening? Hata judiciary hata imeisha enda strike bwana. You know, guys, are we catching feelings? Millennials and Gen Zs, are we just, are we being angry for nothing? Then some of the people who went missing, and one of the things that has happened online is we've had a lot of data being collected on the guys who've gone missing, and now some of them are turning up in morgues. The gentleman who went missing on 27th of July, and he was found in a morgue in Gilgil. This has been happening quite a lot, and I'm going to be talking about this, even the case of enforced disappearances. I mean, what happens when the president of the country says no abductions have happened, yet we have victims of abduction who are actually coming forward to say we have been abducted? That's the conversation I'm having today. Remember, you can reach out to us with your questions on the socials at Pawa Radio, at James WaNjeri, and I'm going to be giving you the Twitter handles at the very least for my guest today. Please, 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 this is a place where you ask all the questions you want. We have a very balanced panel, but I tell you, it's going to be fire moto. All right? Let's get some music, and then when we come back, we meet our guests for today. This is Sheria Dive.
From sunrise to sunset, all day and night. Power Radio.
Me, I keep it fresh, fresh on. Me, I keep it fresh, me, I keep it fresh, me, I keep it fresh all day. Fresh all day, fresh all day, it's all cool. Fresh all day. Think you can handle Count Moolah. I come correct. And yeah, my swag so official like I'm the ref. See, I be rockin' Louis, so shorties wanna do me. Have all these haters feeling so underdressed. I see you mucking me, but I ain't mucking back. Cause I ain't got time for your chitty chat. Why you tryna copy and paste me? I'll be with your broad like butter on pastry. She's on my arm like my Virgin Mary. And we be on that weed from early. OG, smoking by the OZ. And all she wanna see is a couple emojis. Well, I got money to blow. And shorty, I ain't tripping, so you already know. Can't moolah all day. If you want it, gon' pay. Hater, I'm just letting you know that all I know is swagger. Me, I keep it it fresh all day, it's all cool. Me, I keep it fresh all day, it's all cool.
Put your hands up if you have some.
Cause you keep it fresh all day, it's all cool. Cause you keep it fresh all day, it's all cool.
Okay, my life is not the same, and I know who to blame. If I remember the name, it sounded something like fame. For the money, for the game, I would kill it.
No shame.
Rep a crew that's untamed, and I'm a dude that's maintained. Swagger so right as Frank. 20 big Benjamin sitting in the bank.
What you think?
I've been working hard, numbers agree. So please believe me, this is easy, born to be an MC. So I took one Nairobi, the swagger strong only.
Yeah.
24 hours round the clock, Wani. The Levi store know me. Big up Ryo and Fuzzy. Now I'm fresh all day, Nikki Chapakazi. Boys be looking happy, this ever slappy. Lucy, Kibaki, LOL. Yeah, I'm only messing, I'm just digging the jam. Bumping it with my fam. Joe Taylor's helping me stand. Let go.
All I know is swagger.
Me, I keep it fresh all day, it's all cool. Me, I keep it fresh all day, it's all cool.
Put your hands up if you have some.
Cause you keep it fresh all day, it's all cool. Cause you keep it fresh all day, it's all cool.
I said we on to be their favorite. Moolah team pacing. Further than the basement, higher than the spaceships. NASA couldn't waste this, rockets couldn't chase this. Swagger on vintage, African Fresh Prince. Flying like the Jetsons, higher than the Jeffersons. Moving on up till they can't get enough of us. Now we at the top, better use your binoculars. Swagger non-stop is what you do if you have some. And I'm just getting started. Ever seen a Kenyan boy trying to go harder? Huh? You gotta work for your profit, cause everybody's trying to get paid in Nairobi. I think your swagger need coaching. Fresh all day, it's all cool by the ocean. Swagging down in South Coast, you could say we coasting. High grade glowing, super flowing. Damn.
All I know is swagger.
Me, I keep it fresh all day, it's all cool. Me, I keep it fresh all day, it's all cool.
Put your hands up if you have some.
Cause you keep it fresh all day, it's all cool. Cause you keep it fresh all day, it's all cool. Fresh all day, 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 it's all cool. Fresh all day, fresh all day, it's all cool.
I keep it fresh all day. That's Kamula. And of course, that guy who just feels they split too early and they denied us. Acha hiyo story ishi hapo. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined in studio by some two amazing individuals. I have to give an apology on behalf of Kasichana. Kasichana, unfortunately, lost her grandmother mid this past week, and we'd just like to send our condolences to her and her family. She was supposed to join us in studio today, but unfortunately she won't be able to join us. However, we have in studio Emily Kinama is an advocate of the High Court. She works with Katiba Institute. You're going to be getting to learn a bit more about her and her story and how she actually got into the practice of law. Those things are very important for us. I know there are some young lawyers who are listening to this and they're probably wondering, how do you get to do the work that Emily does? And of course, on my right, I'm joined by Mr. Evans Ogada. Evans Ogada is the one who was speaking French at the Court of Appeal. And if you don't know what that was, I'm going to be telling you about that shortly. But let's start with you, Emily. How are you, Emily? How are you doing?
I'm good.
You're good? Wacha tuwaeke nyenye. Sema tena you're good, wasikie.
I'm good.
Fantastic. Emily, you want to introduce yourself? Your own introduction. How would you like to introduce yourself?
How would I introduce myself? So my name is Emily Kinama. I currently work for Katiba Institute, a non-governmental organization based in Nairobi, Kenya. Yes, and I love to dance.
Emily loves to dance. So Flozy is in studio here. She's looking at our playlist. So just do her that favor. The table is big enough. Emily, tell us about your journey into law. Did you always know you wanted to be a lawyer?
No, I didn't know that I wanted to be a lawyer. In fact, I had wanted to be an engineer.
Yeah.
precisely an aeronautical engineer, and then I went to high school, and physics was not my friend.
Yeah, man, physics has
So-
many victims.
Physics was not my friend, and I decided initially I'd wanted to do psychology, but again, thinking through it, I decided to change and do law. Yes.
And so in terms of legal practice, what do you do at Katiba?
At Katiba, I currently head the litigation unit. Katiba Institute was established in 2011, and it has three main departments, one of it being the litigation unit that does a lot of public interest litigation and strategic litigation.
Yeah.
There's also the programmatic department that deals with research, civic education, and publication of the research that we do in a manner that is simple to be understood by members of the public. And then we have the finance and the admin.
Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. Of course, we know about Katiba Institute. We cannot mention the Constitution 2010 without Katiba Institute in the mix because of all the cases that Katiba have done. But on my right here, I'm joined by Mr. Evans Ogada. Evans, bonjour, bonjour.
Bonjour, ça va?
Ah, yes, that's all. Hapo ndio imeishia, unless omelette au fromage. Hapo imeishia. Evans, tell us about yourself, bro. How are you?
Salama sana, good afternoon.
Yeah.
My name is Evans Ogada. I'm a Kenyan citizen, born and bred in Nairobi.
Yeah.
I was born and bred on the east side of Nairobi. So grew up speaking Sheng. Niliona Times Tower and Nairobi grow. So I have a passion for this city.
Yeah.
And I've seen all that has characterized Kenya in the last couple of years. And probably that informs the person I am today. Yes.
Fantastic. Evans, tell us about your journey into law. Did you always know you're going to be a lawyer?
Well, I think the decision was made early, at around age 8, where I decided it was either going to be law. I was settled at early, law. Then at some point I was like, do I go to do economics? So I even did economics in high school.
Yeah.
Then you say passion has a way of bringing you back. So during my year, I think JAB, what I hear they call coups today, JAB decided that law had to, for you to study law, you had to obtain an A- for the JAB.
Yeah.
So I was locked out of that. So because I had a B, so I could not go for the law one. So I had to meander, go study French, then came back to law.
Yeah.
And as they say, the rest is history.
The rest is history, and we're going to be talking about a bit of that history. Of course, this week is the Katiba promulgation week. And maybe we start with the wins. Let's start with the wins. Emily, Katiba has actually been involved in several cases, but, and I know you've been personally involved in some, and we're going to be talking about maybe Satro Sayuma, we're going to be talking about Me Too Bill. Some of the cases you've actually taken all the way to the Supreme Court. The people that are seated next to me here, they've handled matters in Kenya before the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court of Kenya. And they're going to be just giving us some of their feedback on that. But Emily, in terms of the wins, what do you think are some of the wins we've gotten as a result of the Constitution?
The wins that I can think of, even practically, is having theoretically the rights expressly put in the Constitution. There are many countries that across Africa, let me just speak about Africa, that do not have an opportunity where they can open a constitution and say, for example, there's a recognition of rights such as socioeconomic rights, the right to adequate and accessible housing, the right to health, adequate health, emergency care treatment, the right to food of quality, not just food. So I think the Constitution has made such great strides just by providing express provisions that people can enjoy and run to in a situation where the rights are violated or the state or private bodies do not respect their rights. I think that is a plus. A plus is also that the constitution making process we went through was very inclusive.
Yeah.
It was participatory of the people, and now it has reached a point where the people are able to go back to the constitution and keep reminding those who have to implement and apply it that this is what we had agreed to, but what you're giving us is not what we signed for.
Yeah, and perhaps I have to ask you, like, even when you look at the Gen Z, are you actually shocked at how much Kenyans know the Constitution? Did that come as a shock to you?
I will not say it came as a shock,
Yeah.
but it was a reality that with the moving times of technology, the movement of information being dispersed from one area to the other was faster than it was perhaps even 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But it was a breath of fresh air where civic education now moved to a digital platform,
Yeah.
where civic education now moved to issues related to, or rather on TikTok, on Twitter. The civic education we knew from the beginning is speaking with a big chat under a tree in
Yeah.
a community somewhere far, far away. It probably still is the same, but the Gen Z movement elevated it to a level where information could be reached because of their actions. Those who don't have the internet, for example, which is a majority of people, then could hear about it on radio or the newspaper. The forms were of media that they listen to more often. So had that not been done on a digital platform,
Yeah.
it would not have transcended to the extent that now people are, I would say, awakened to now go back and realize what they had called for. So it was both shocking, but as well it was a reality that this time was about to come. I think after COVID, nothing shocks me.
Yeah,
too
of
much
course.
anymore.
And I guess it must have been like a good surprise. Evans, were you shocked at how much Gen Zs know about the Constitution?
No, I teach these fellows in class. And
Oh, yeah, I forgot to say Evans is actually a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, lecturing the the School of Law. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm always amazed at the level of knowledge that these young ones have.
Yeah.
We have smart people that have disposable tools that afford them knowledge that some of us did not have when we were studying, or even their parents did not have. So the level of knowledge is certainly better.
Yeah.
What amazed me is the guts.
Yeah.
I could not imagine people demonstrating and actually getting into parliament. That I did not foresee. I could not foresee the level of confidence and courage and speaking truth to power.
Yeah.
And they do it to anyone and everyone. I've seen them invade the X spaces, and they're telling everyone the truth, from the president to cabinet ministers to MPs. I mean, it is brazen, it is bold, and I like it.
And perhaps, Stevens, I need to ask: the president characterized the storming of parliament as criminal conduct, treasonous conduct. I don't know what's your opinion or your opinion on that. Did the protesters have a right to access parliament? Is that an acceptable expression of the right to protest?
Well, I watched this thing on TV, and I can say that it was managed badly.
Yeah.
Because these protesters have a right to picket, to present petitions, to go to public spaces. Article 37. Now, this thing was okay until some point, because you are watching this on TV. You see some people in suits carrying rifles opening fire.
Yeah.
And media images point to some alleged snipers, some 3 alleged snipers at KICC opening fire. Now, the enduring image for me is this young JKU at science graduate whose brains were spilled on the streets on that day. Outside Parliament. He was the first victim of this. That guy was dressed in white, I think, and he was only dancing and carrying, was it a flag or something?
Yeah, the flag of Kenya.
And you could see him quite energetic. Why would you snipe at this guy and open up his brains and spill it on the streets. And then you tell us this one was a criminal.
Were you shocked by the police response to the protesters?
To tell you that I'm shocked, no. We have police reforms are one of the casualties of what we had envisaged to be a new order under the Constitution.
Yeah.
Because you can see right from 2010, all measures that were aimed at changing the police. Remember, we used to have under the old order, the police was called the police force. To mark cultural shift, we said that the police should be called a service. That did not happen.
Yeah.
And you could even see the committees, the commissions that were formed to oversee police reforms, all of them were ignored. Their efforts were handicapped. So it tells you, the Bible says that you have new wine in old wineskins. This is a typical case of that,
Yeah.
whereby people have refused to reform and to accept that there's a new way of doing things. And perhaps the most telling of statements, there was this PPO, provincial police officer,
Yeah.
sometime in Kisumu, who just after the Constitution 2010, she was being told of the new order of things under the Constitution. And this lady told civil society activists that, that document of yours, because I'm told she said it in Swahili, that document of yours only works outside these gates. The only thing I know is orders from above and police standing orders. It shows you the mentality of these people. Some of these people have not accepted that the Constitution is supposed to be ensuring that they do things differently. So the police, iko shida.
Yeah. I mean, Emily, was it a shock for you? I mean, we all saw the brains outside Parliament. We all saw the people that had been shot. I think there was actually a video running at about that time where the guy was already dead, but the police kept, throwing tear gas at a dead body, preventing other protesters from picking up this gentleman. Did that come as a shock to you that 14 years after Kenya's new constitution, we had such a brutal response from the Kenya police?
I would say yes and no. I think most of the time when we're dealing with questions of extrajudicial killing or excessive use of police force, we hear it maybe in the informal settlements in Mombasa, in areas that are far away from us. So we hear about it, we hear civil society organizations talking about it, but this is one of the first times where we have seen it live on the television. Like, it's happening and we're watching and we're seeing it. Did it shock me? Of course it did. It did. And 14 years after the Constitution, Katiba Institute had gone to court.
Yeah.
Gone to court to challenge the police use of force through an amendment. The police had amended the National Police Service Act to allow use of force to protect property. And so in this instance, where was the self-defense? What were they protecting? What life were they protecting?
And
Because
what did the court say? What did the court say in that decision that the case Katiba took to court?
in a summary, the provisions that amended the law to allow use of force to protect property was determined to be unconstitutional because it went over and above what was required in terms of even the police standing orders, the constitution, the right to life. You cannot use force to protect property.
So when can a police officer, because this has been a very controversial question, when is a police officer allowed to use live rounds at any given time? Or are there exceptions?
Yes, I think there are exceptions for police to do their work anywhere. They should be allowed. There are instances where they would have to use force, and the National Police Service Act puts those particular instances when they can do so to protect life in self-defense. And at the end of the day, even when they do this, there are checks and balances. You have to answer for each round that is removed from whatever ammunition you have used. So there are checks and balances. And when it comes to protection of property, one of the analysis from the court was it was such an unjustifiable limitation of a right, because they could shoot you for stealing an apple, a chicken,
Yeah.
because that's property under the law. If you look at Article 260 of the Constitution, definition of property, it's not only land, it includes any movable thing.
But I think even here, part of the challenge, I'm every time I think about this is Evans is making an argument for, like, we had snipers. I think, and I've attended a few protests. This was actually the first time I saw that the Kenya police is actually sending out snipers to actually shoot at unarmed protesters, because we all saw the videos. These were people who were only holding flags. Should that be something that worries us, that we can actually have police snipers? And remember, this was also coming just after a whistleblower in the NHIF corruption case was actually taken out in the streets of Nairobi just while walking by a sniper. I mean, does that actually, what does that say about Kenya and where we are, especially with regards to how much value we place on a Kenyan life? Emily, what do you have to say about that?
I think for me it was not even, I think, it was scary for everyone who watched it. You can't identify the police officers who, for all of us, it's speculation. Who was it? By the time, maybe if the media turned, it's only pictures, I think, that came later. Then we saw some who were standing and shooting from within Parliament. Yeah. But there are those who wore masks. You couldn't tell who they are. Where did these bullets come from? You know, those are concerns where if there are checks and balances in a proper system, that should not be allowed. That they had no regard for life, no regard even for safety, because life goes beyond them dying. It's you being able to live a quality life. And there are those who've survived with gunshot wounds who can't live the quality life that they're living. So that is definitely a concern that Kenyans should be concerned about. Yeah. Because what then happened next? We're trying to ask for accountability of that day. We're not getting anything.
Ivas, I'm going to bring it back to you. The Law Society of Kenya actually went to court and got orders. And the court said that police are not allowed to be hooded, all right? They are not allowed to block the number plates of their vehicles.
Yes.
But as soon as the order had been issued, they were back to it. Same modus operandi, you know, like no orders had been issued. There's a problem here clearly of how the police are executing court orders. How do we deal with that? Because a lot of court orders have been violated within this period.
I think before the LSK went to court, we had Advocate Saita Pawa Kanchori in Malindi, yes, who had moved to court seeking similar prayers, and he indeed got orders. Again, the culture of impunity, because you look at the police service, as we call it in the Constitution, there are people who still don't believe that they are accountable and that they should operate under a Constitution. Because as Emily was correctly saying, you are required to use lethal force in very restricted circumstances where you are protecting life and property. Very restricted circumstances.
And actually, Emily is saying just life and
yes,
self-defense.
Yes.
You can't protect property using, lethal force.
Those fellas argue property and they will justify all manner of things. But let us look at the case of the first killing of the protests, Rex
Masai Kanyeki, yeah.
That young man, clearly shot from behind. What did Rex do to anyone? Look at the protests in 2023, where a good number of people were shot in Kisumu and Kibera. Let's not forget, 6-month baby, Samantha Pendo, some years back. This was a kid who was clobbered while carried by the mother. What did this child do to anyone? So you can clearly see a pattern of impunity. People know they will do anything. They will manipulate systems, and somebody will have their back. Nobody holds them to account. And that is deliberate, because that is aimed at, number one, undermining the Constitution. And when you have politicians come out and say, these are figments of our imagination, police officers are not killing anyone, and all manner of justification being given, that only goes to embolden this culture. And I'm glad at least the Law Society of Kenya and civil society have been holding these people to account. I think the Samantha Pendo case is still ongoing.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a couple of cases that LSK and individual advocates have taken to court on behalf of certain families. That is the way to go. Because unless and until we put a stop to this menace of police brutality and waywardness, we will not have it in this country. Yeah.
We're going to be getting a music break at that point, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about the socio-economic rights. Emily has litigated on matters to do with housing, and we're going to just be looking at that. How have the courts of Kenya upheld those rights? Remember, these are not rights that had been put in the old constitution. And as well, Evans will also tell us the story of the BBI and attempts to amend the constitution and why that failed this time round. Remember, this is Sheria Dive right here on Pawa Radio.
Pawa Radio. And Pawa Up.
That's Polaris with Umenitosha. And of course, I always say Polaris. Sorry, that's Polaris with Umenitosha. And I always say Polaris is a great story of what it means to be a Kenyan because this song was actually done as a result of a DJ just putting the beat online. And I said, hey, can anyone put words to this? And Polaris did that. And of course, today she has so many songs. That's how we are doing it the Kenyan way. Emily, you're talking about socio-economic rights. This is one of the things that the Constitution of Kenya has provided for. I know you were involved in the Mitubel case. Just give us a bit of background in Mitubel and what exactly you are asking the court in that regard.
Thanks, James. Maybe as a background of socioeconomic rights, there's a section in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, Article 43, that covers what is known as socioeconomic rights. These are the rights I would say affect the day-to-day person. If you don't have your right to health, right to education, right to food, right to water and clean sanitation, housing, you can't live a life and a dignified life. So they are critical rights which must be upheld, but are complex in nature. In nature to the extent of resources, financial resources being pegged to the realization of the rights. And maybe that will go then to the Mitubel case, a case that took place about an eviction near Wilson Airport in an area called Mitumba Village. The eviction took place without proper procedures of the law at that time. It was around 2013, between 2011 and 2013, just after the new constitution had been passed. The constitution recognized the right to accessible and adequate housing, but there were no laws in place to guide the state and public and the private people on how to evict people in a dignified and inhumane manner. Mm-hmm. And by the time this had gone to court, I know the UN Special Rapporteur on Adequate Housing had made a country visit to Kenya, and one of the recommendations he had given to Kenya is he hailed Kenya for it passing the constitution and recognizing the right to housing as a right, but they had failed to provide for laws that would govern how people would be evicted. And so it went to the High Court before the then Justice Mumbi Ngugi, and those who had evicted, it was against Kenya Airports Authority. Yeah. They'd evicted these people from an informal settlement where they'd lived for many years, had schools there, their families, their jobs, and found in their favor and said that the right to housing goes beyond the provisions of 4 walls and a roof. Yeah. That's how it is described. It also means the state having to pull back and not do anything that would put people in a situation that they are worse off than they were. So after that, the court gave what in law is known as a structural interdict, basically a remedy that is used to deal with structural problems in the society, such as housing. So she set out a way in which a remedy would be given to those who were evicted. But by the time it got to the Court of Appeal, it was overturned, with the court saying that the right to property of Kenya Airports Authority subsided the right or overtook the right to these people, poor people.
So that's a clear what I guess one would call a competing rights. That you have KAA on one side, they have the right to property, but you have the victims of the eviction on the other side. So what? So the Court of Appeal holds that the right to property supersedes the right to?
The right to property superseded the right to dignity and the right to housing, which includes the right not to be evicted in an indignified manner. And they held the property rights to the extent that Kenya Airports Authority should be able to enjoy their land. Yeah. And it then and they say the structural interdict is not a remedy recognized under Kenyan law.
What?
And that the moment the judge gave her finding, her work ended and she should have dropped her pen. So it gets to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has to tackle very interesting questions, including the context of international law, because understanding rights such as socioeconomic rights needs help from what internationally are known as United Nations General Comments or recommendations, or in the African system, what the African Commission has interpreted in different comments on different rights. And so for them, they said those general comments and the court relying on them to interpret the right to housing, which then was linked to evictions, should not be applied because they were not law.
Yeah.
Parliament had not sat, had not determined a law that could be used for Kenya Airports Authority to evict.
Yeah.
It gets to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has to tackle these questions. Firstly, it says under Article 2.5 of the Constitution, which recognizes the right or state or that international law, treaty law forms part of Kenya. Through that treaty that Kenya had entered internationally, the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, then there was an interpretation under the General Comment number 4 and 7 that gave guidelines on evictions. How should a state carry out eviction so that it is dignified?
Yes.
They were not saying do not evict these people from here, but they were saying if ever a private or a public person has to evict a group of people, these are the steps they should follow. Simple steps like don't evict before 6 a.m., don't evict during Christmas period, don't evict when schools are continuing, because we are not talking about an eviction of one person. Informal settlement evictions, the history in Kenya has been thousands of people. You literally change people's lives. And so the court agreed with the High Court that we could use general comments. The court also agreed on the place of remedies in the Constitution under Article 23 to the extent that it says that any court, when determining whether a right has been violated, can issue any other remedy, including, the word including, they interpreted it in the Constitution to mean a court has the power to issue any order it deems fit.
Yeah.
To ensure that a wrong is righted. So in this instance, a structural interdict issued by the court was proper by the High Court, that it is a measure that can be used and that the Supreme Court had used it.
Yes.
It had previously used it in the Communications Commission of Kenya case. Remember when we were moving from analog to digital TV?
Yeah, I remember the drama.
They requested the government to report back because of the short timeline within which that movement from analog to digital happened. Later, even after Mitubel in the case of Muratetu, there was a structural interdict after the court determined that the mandatory death sentence is unconstitutional for them to come back and answer to the court. So they agreed with that. But then I think building up on what socioeconomic rights is, a state, the Supreme Court made a very important finding, and it said, when you look at the duties of a state, for these people to live here for 30 years in an informal settlement, which was public land, and you did absolutely nothing. You let them stay here, build their lives, build their family, that you never gave them the option of even an alternative place to go to, shows the structural problem of housing in Kenya that courts cannot shut their eyes to, that there are informal settlements coming up because of all these reasons, of the state not putting up measures or policies to deal with it. But further to that the right to housing accrues to you by the mere fact that you're a human being. So I think those are very crucial points.
Yeah.
And they say they recognize the right to property, but you must still balance. If an eviction takes place, do it and follow the law. And luckily, because we didn't have a law later in 2016, on 21st of September 2016, Parliament passed the Land Law Amendments Act, which section 152A to I recognizes steps for eviction. And guess what they did? They literally lifted the United Nations guidelines on forced evictions.
Fantastic. So that means you can't be evicted before 6 a.m. You can't be evicted during like a school season and
rainy season,
Christmas.
Imagine, like during floods. There are things you can't do that are just unheard of. You have to give adequate notice if it's public land, if it's community land, if it's private land. For each demarcation of the land, there are ways of evicting.
Even the president says that the right to housing means that he can build houses for us and sell them to us. I mean, the housing levy it's an octopus that has kept changing, and I know the courts have spoken about it. Is that argument justified by the president, that because that right exists in the Constitution, then the government should take your money and use it to build a house and then sell it to you? What's your view on the housing levy?
Well, sometimes I see things happening in this country and I just smile. because the government has been removed from the social aspects of our economy for a long time.
Yes.
Basically, housing, health, we have left it to private hands.
Yes.
We are not social democracy oriented like Cuba, Scandinavian countries, where the state heavily influences housing, education, and those kind of aspects. Now, Kenya has been in existence since 1963. You wake up in the year circa 2023 and you think that you can build houses and provide them to Kenyans, forgetting that our economy has historical roots, our mode of government has historical roots, and the accessibility of land. Land is largely in private hands.
Yes.
So you see how knee-jerk some of these things are. Then you come into whatever scheme you're organizing and you want people who are formally employed to bear the burden of paying for those houses and to provide them for the rest of us. Those who are formally employed are far less than those who are not employed.
Yes. I think about, is it 2 or 3 million Kenyans that are
Very
formally
few.
employed? Yeah.
These are segment of the country that are already overburdened by the tax weight in the country. You want to bring in something that is totally unnecessary. Sometimes you ask yourself, who advises these people? Because there are many ways in which the state can influence Article 43. You can think of tax rebates. You can think of whatever tax fiscal measures you can afford to private parties, private actors, so that it becomes less painful to the pockets of Kenyans. Then long term, you think of these things of building houses. If I were president today, assuming I wanted to build houses, I will start with police officers, the military, teachers, that segment that I could easily control, because probably I have the land and probably it can be easy. The logistics of building houses for the whole country is a nightmare. The other day we saw some news item somewhere that most of the money that was collected for affordable housing actually was diverted to, was it bonds?
Yeah, it's actually bonds, and the question on who is getting the interest remains unanswered.
Unanswered.
Yeah.
So you ask yourself, was this thought through? Because like Emily has correctly said, so Article 43 is supposed to be correcting market imbalances. You're trying to bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots. You're trying to bring dignity back to a segment of the population that has been left behind. You don't do what I see people in government doing.
Yeah.
And affordable housing, this other thing called SHIF, people are running it with it like it's crazy. But what are the institutional and philosophical thinking behind some of these things? They don't make sense. Yes.
Well, when we come back, we're going to be talking about some of the losses in this constitution. Not everything has been rosy. We've gotten some good decisions, but I'd like to hear from my panel. What are some of the bad decisions that have come out of our courts that have cost us? And of course, I think we're going to have Lempasu Yanka featuring heavily in that, because he was one of the first people to take a matter on Article 10 of the Constitution to court. So that's what we're going to be talking about when we come back. Remember, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us on the socials at Pawa Radio, and you can reach out to me at James WaNjeri on the socials. Remember, we'll be happy to answer your questions. And for those who are watching live on YouTube, you can use the chat section to just ask any questions, and we're going to be looking out for that so that we can give you some responses. So for now, let's get some music.
All day.
Wagwan Nairobi. Y'all know what it is. We've got 5 mics on the track. We're about to tell you who's taking over.
Y'all feel the heat when we come through Party Nation. Sexy people around me, party nation. All of the man them looking so fly. Sexy girl them wiggle and wine. On your feet, boogie and grind. MDQ baby girl one time.
Hivi si ufanyaga, si ndio show si upataga, si kwenye flow uko ndo uwaga, champemo mpaka tunamwaga. Remember kuni matanga, boss lady mimi ndo semanga, na wapanga muda na wachanga, mko nje mkisota mkimanga me J's on my feet, inyaga ride on the beat. Tazama I'm a hot tip black boss on the ride.
I see everyone's one on my mind, my hair. Afuzwa na ulimwengu, wacha tupatane pataye, mbeleni mtatufahamu, hatutakoma hatuchoki, kuwapikia tu matamu, mazuri twakupa kama kawaida, twazidi kutisha hiskwani ya bala. Yo, feel the heat when we come through, party nation. Squad. Sexy people around me, party nation. Squad. All of the man them looking so fly. Sexy girl them wiggle and wine. On your feet, boogie and grind. Cagwe, let me hear you say.
Ish bana, niko gauge sana, safi sana. Ati leo hakuna kulala, fena mayonde. Modoni drama queen, blinky bit gago, get physical. You know kama kawaida it's typical. Who are them? Confidential, bad man jump again. Do again. Happy mention, squad up, congregate. Who are them? Confidential, bad man jump again. Do again. Happy mention, squad up, congregate.
Y'all feel the heat when we come through, party nation. Squad. Sexy people around me, party nation. Squad. All of the man them looking so fly. Sexy girl them wiggle and wine. On your feet, boogie and grind. Blicky bill, on the beat one time.
Like it's on Billy. I'm really tryna make a milli. Any track I kill it. And the girls they feel it. I really wanna get down low. Weak bit tough, gonna get down low. Squad is back with the heat for sure. Dance floor lit with the beat I know. See the people out here side by side. Vibe is right because we do it right. Getting there so I will take my time. Never late cause this is Kenyan time. Yeah. Okay. Now who taking over?
Who's taking over? He's taking over. He's taking over. Nairobi taking over. Nairobi taking over. Squad taking over. Squad taking over. Hey, yo, Cagway.
That's phenomenal. It party. That's like the party anthem. So we're here in studio, and some people have just realized how old they are. They don't know there's a Fena who exists out here. Now, we have spoken about some of the, and I think there are many wins. I mean, you look at the independence of the judiciary. That also is a big win, but it was also a bruising battle. I remember President Kibaki deciding that he knows how to appoint the Chief Justice himself. And that was dealt with, and Uhuru saying, no, give me 3 names, I will choose one, and the court having to deal with that. We've had a lot of gains, but I also feel like there are some things we have been unable to realize in the Constitution.
Yes.
And perhaps let's start with Article 10. Kenya, if you look at the drafters of the Constitution, the idea they had was that Kenya would actually be governed through using certain values and using certain principles. In 2013, we had the election, and Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto then present themselves to be candidates for that presidential election. And Lempas Suyanka then goes to court under IPPC, right?
Yes.
And they say, wait a minute, these guys have actually been accused of crimes against humanity. Why are they being allowed to vie? the court said you are innocent until proven guilty. I don't know, Emily, when you think of a decision like that, and you can also tell us some of the missteps perhaps that you've observed, but have there been some of those instances where you felt we actually did not realize the promise of the Constitution?
Yes, I would say there are missteps. There are some missteps that have happened. Of course, the question of integrity, Chapter 6, a matter going all the way to the Supreme Court where we can have this issue of Chapter 6 fully settled and determined. There are many courts, there are many cases, of course, at the High Court, possibly at the Supreme Court, or at the Court of Appeal. I might not know of all the cases across the country, but there are possibly those questions that are there. But the second one, when I think of missteps, I think it's more of disobedience of court orders.
Yeah.
It does not matter what cases are argued, but the level of disobedience of court orders is so high. Even in instances where we have clients who've won damages against the state for violation of rights.
Yeah.
It's almost 3 years, 4 years. We keep writing to the Attorney General. We keep writing to the relevant ministries for them to pay up the damages or whatever losses these people suffered as a result of violation of their rights. But a lot of that is not happening. Why should victims have to go through such challenges to get what would have assisted them? In some instances, for example, of forced sterilization, we have women who it's affected their reproductive rights.
What do you mean by forced sterilization?
In 2021 it was in 2023, the High Court Justice Murima delivered 2 decisions on forced sterilization that took place in the informal settlement, where HIV positive women without their consent, informed consent under the law, ended up being forcefully sterilized.
What? This means they will never be able to bear
have children. Yes, they underwent tubal ligation without their consent.
Goodness.
And this was done by private facilities.
Yeah.
And they were found, of course, they had violated the rights. And you can imagine trying to follow up for damages for these people to get, because some women, there are consequences to what these violations, either from a private person or the state. I think we need to make that clear. That the vertical and horizontal application of the Constitution means both the state or a private body can violate your rights. And after that, in terms of payment, remedies for these women, we don't have them, and it's consequential impacts of them not undergoing, for them undergoing, for example, tubal ligation.
Yeah.
And not being able to have children, and there being domestic violence as a result of that.
Yeah, because I'm sure that affects even the relationship, for instance, with their husband.
Yes, and some are as young as 20 years old.
What?
So where are they? And this is happening in Kenya. You know, sometimes you hear cases and you wonder, which country are you talking about? Is it Latin America? There are cases that have come from Latin America on that. There are cases as well on community land. I think our Constitution thought well when they put the provisions on community land. The reason I'm saying that this provision is very critical, it's an understanding that 60% of the land mass in Kenya is community land. And a lot of it, even after the 2016 Community Land Act, communities across vast areas and land in Kenya have not had the property transferred to them since 2016. Very few. It is even worse if you're in an added disadvantage of a very contentious area. So if you're not able to realize that right to land, let's remove ourselves from Nairobi. A lot of communities in different parts of the counties across Kenya rely heavily on the land for their source of livelihood, for their source of life, for their source of culture. Where do they bury their ancestors? And this is happening in a time where we're now also thinking of carbon credits, environmental rights. So people are buying land which has not yet been converted to community land. So who is benefiting in those instances? So as much as it's a progressive provision, until now, has it been given? Some court cases have been very progressive. For example, in Marsabit, a 3-judge bench transferred 100,000 acres of land that was unlawfully acquired by the county government of Marsabit back to the community. with the reasoning that it's a pastoral community, they won't need the
They
land.
don't need it. They're always moving anyway.
But do they move and come back to the same land? Yes, they do. Are there other rights in the Constitution that have also not been fully realized? If we think of access to information is a facilitative or an enabling right.
Yes.
You cannot hold accountable a government that operates in secrecy.
Exactly. You need to get the information fast.
You need the information, number one, for public participation. How do you go for a meeting and you don't know what you're going to talk about? Many people attend public participation meetings and they have no clue. The document they've been given vis-a-vis the document being discussed are very different.
Yeah.
I want to encourage Kenyans, attend public participation meetings if you can, when you can. And so if you're not able to get some of these enabling rights, it has an impact on public finance, on holding accountable devolved government services. We've now argued, or we've had court cases that are discussing or protecting the role of devolution and county governments. But we are now moving to an instance where across the country, they're saying, yes, there are these budgets that the county has come up with, but are we receiving the services under those? How do we hold them now accountable to ensure that those services get to the mwananchi on the ground? Yes.
Evans, the Constitution creates what we call the independent offices and independent commissions. And maybe I'd just like to get your views on two things. Number one, for instance, we have the National Land Commission. And part of their role, as laid out in the Constitution, is, for instance, to identify land perhaps that the government needs to purchase. But we've seen a lot of corruption that has been propagated by the same independent commissions. But then also let's even look at the counties. The idea for the counties was to decentralize power and resources.
Yes.
But then you still have the same counties. I think I was reading, there was a report that had been published. During Kidero's reign, Nairobi lost 18 billion shillings.
Yes.
During Sonko's reign, Nairobi lost 13 billion. During Kananu's reign, we lost about 1 billion, and now, recently, Nairobi has lost 1.3 billion in salaries that have been paid to people that don't exist. When you look at the commissions, independent commissions, and how they've handled themselves, and you look at the county governments, have we actually completely failed to activate what the Constitution desired for these two, let's call them agencies or bodies, or for these two constitutionally created bodies?
I want you to answer your question by giving you an analogy. In 1931 or 32, Germany had a very beautiful constitution, Bill of Rights, principles, one of the best, and touted as one of the best then.
Yes.
It's called the Weimar Constitution, Weimar. That constitution was deliberately undermined because politics, nationalist politics, the interests of politicians, and the need for German nationalist supremacy was seen as a primary objective over and above that constitution. Those miscalculations made that, yes, we had very good provisions of the constitution, but the lived realities of politics superseded the wordings of the constitution. And hence, in constitutional law, we have a phenomenon called the Weimar syndrome after that constitution, whereby you have a good constitution, but it is deliberately undermined by actions parallel to the constitution, the Weimar syndrome. That is what we have in Kenya today. 264 articles, touted as one of the best constitutions in the world, beautiful language, transformative, blah, blah, blah. But the actions of political actors in this country have ensured that we undermine this constitution. So you've spoken of the independent commissions. For those listeners who don't understand what these commissions are, if you look at your chapter 15, we have a number of commissions there that were intended to be what I call the fourth arm of government. They're supposed to be checking constitutionalism and the rule of law vis-a-vis the rest of the arms of government. They're supposed to be independent of all other arms of government. This commission started well, and history will remind us they started well. We had the National Police Service Commission under Kavuludi. We had the Gender Commission, the Kenya National Human Rights Commission under Maina Kiai. Very powerful, asserting their role, trying to do what they were able to do. So what does government do to check these commissions? So number one, they claw back the funding. These commissions continue to assert themselves. They bring in the next level of tactic, direct intimidation. If listeners remember, we had this instance where Kavuludi, who was chair of the National Police Service, very vocal by then, he had a severed head.
Yeah, I remember a head was actually
delivered to him, and he was given threats. And Kavuludi never became the same after that. He pulled back, and actually even his language in public, he became co-opted and started singing the language of the establishment. The third line of tactic, they now started ensuring that they plant political operatives and friends in these commissions, so that when you hear some of these people speak, it's as if somebody is in a parastatal, an appendage of the executive. So Kenyans, we need to reassert what the Constitution was intended to be. And this ties to what you're saying, James, with Chapter 6. The reason why Chapter 6 and the ICCPR, the Uhuru Ruto case, brought us to this mess we are in, we have been unable to understand that this Constitution has what we call the political aspect of the Constitution and the legal aspect of the Constitution. The legal aspect of the Constitution, those we go to court and enforce.
Yes.
What Emily, Katiba, and some of us go to enforce every day in court. Then we have what we call the political aspect. This will require citizens, for example, to engage in public participation activities, ensure that your governor, your president, your MP is doing the right thing. If they don't, go and enforce it in court. That's the political aspect. Another aspect that is political vis-a-vis Chapter 6, you have been accused of corruption as a former governor.
Yeah.
Or you have been accused as a sitting member of government.
Yes.
Out of good honesty, you are required to step aside because the office is higher than you,
Yes.
more sacred than you. Step aside. I may not be guilty, but I want the office unblemished. Let me step aside so that the office is not tainted by my being there. We call that in constitutional law constitutional conventions. They are practices that we do to maintain the integrity of the office. In the UK, we had a minister, cabinet minister, who came into parliament 5 minutes late for prime minister's question time. He resigned on the floor.
Uganda, we have, let me tell you, Uganda, something. Yeah? Here we have senators and ministers who go to show off their 50,000 shilling belts and their watches for 3 million. Do you really think we can?
we actually had one who said, you remember this fellow who told us, I'd rather die than resign?
I'd rather die.
You remember? You have people who have been accused of sexual assault.
Yes.
People who have been accused of stealing money. And we have all these people, some former governor somewhere, who took money from students, apparently to go somewhere.
And he used it to campaign, and now he's a senator.
And you are going to take him nowhere. That should have been corrected through political conventions. From political party level, Article 91. Candidate Ogada, you took students' money. Clear your name before we give you the party ticket.
Yeah.
So that's the political aspect that we have failed.
But
the judiciary has also failed us.
But on the political angle, because I think that's an important conversation to have, because for now, I think the Gen Zs have realized that, yes, you can actually go to the streets. And then these guys will still come and try to find another angle to still bring in the same things that you fought against. But how do you then deal with that political question? Because political parties in Kenya are just special purpose vehicles. The idea is to just get you to parliament or to get you into state house, and then the party is discarded.
Strategic litigation and what you're doing here. Being an active citizen. Strategic litigation. Take matters to court to ensure that the politicians and their friends are held accountable. You cannot have somebody who is blemished. The other day we had somebody who had some sexual assault cases on him being appointed to some tea factory elections somewhere in the Rift Valley. Through clamor from some of my friends and civil society, he was forced to resign. That is the power of what citizens can do. And let's take it a level higher.
Yeah.
We can take that with MPs, governors. It's not easy. Let me not pretend. It's not easy. We are not going to achieve it immediately, but that's how we bring in the aspect of political accountability, the political constitution.
But perhaps, Emily, just to rope you into this, do you think the presumption of innocence is becoming problematic, especially with regards to Chapter 6? Because the High Court's decision in the case by ICPC was that, yes, these guys have been charged at the ICC, but they're innocent until proven guilty.
I think we could argue both ways, that on one hand, yes, it's a limitation because at what standard are we considering them to be? What is the level of standard you're using to prove under the integrity question vis-a-vis the criminal question where you're innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt, vis-a-vis the integrity standard of what have you done that causes disrepute to the office that you're holding. So this is definitely a question where I think over the period of time, we are 14 years too. Has it been tested to the level where someone can appeal all the way? Are we saying that you have to appeal all the way? And some of these political questions, you could call them political questions, they could be factual questions where people have brought to the court that this is a person, this is what they did. We think that what they did is a violation of Article 73 of the Constitution, specifically on leadership and integrity, and that they should not be allowed to hold office. So some of them, we could say it's a delay. It's part of the question you're asking, where do we feel as if we wish there was a faster determination on what, a faster and a final determination?
And that appears to be a problem that plagues us because Chief Justice Maraga gives an advisory, for instance, on the constitutionality of Parliament, because Parliament did not adhere to the 2/3 gender rule. So he gives an advisory to the president, and the president takes it and puts it on a shelf. And a case is then taken to the High Court. I don't think the bench had been constituted for almost 3 years.
Yes.
Now the bench is suddenly being constituted. I think the gender rule actually is one of those things that we seem to have completely not found a formula to actually achieve what the Constitution expects. How do you deal with that? I know this is one of those things you're very passionate about, Emily.
For me, I don't want to go into the merits or demerits of the case because we are before the court. But the question...
That is a humble lawyer brag.
I do not I do not want to go into the merits or demerits because a bench has been, I believe, been formed, and it will go. A lot of the questions you're asking would have to be determined, but there are other questions being asked by, I think, other people that fine, that was Maraga's, it was Maraga's time. Perhaps it was that Parliament. Could there be another legal question of, it's 2 years that has passed since the new government came into place. They still have not passed the law. Can they request again? So these are some of the questions, some of which might be determined by the court. But at the end of the day, it's not even they can't be able to. Is it that they're blatantly choosing not to pass it? It's a blatant refusal to adhere to that 2/3.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the advisory opinion where we had a dissent from the 2012 advisory opinion, the dissent from the then Chief Justice Mutunga, who said this ought to have been immediate and not progressive realization. So it keeps us having to go back to then, what if the determination by the Supreme Court then was different, that it ought to be immediate and not after. So the two-third also plagues, it's not only in the representative perspective of elective body, but also in appointive bodies. Appointive bodies is different from representative bodies because cases have said for appointive bodies it ought to be immediate and not progressive. I think I would rephrase what you have asked me more, and I look at it as it's a refusal. And because it's a gender issue, as has been historically, people will not really think about it. Like, if you need to be elected, get elected. Why should you be given these spaces?
And they probably believe that they'll refuse and get away with it, isn't it?
Yes, for sure.
Oh, my goodness. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of the opportunities as we look forward. It's only 14 years old, but what do the next 14, the next 100 look like? And then, of course, Evans will tell us about these matters of amendments that do not seem to go away. Why do people want to amend the Constitution of Kenya? And what should we do about that? This is Sheria Dive right here on Power Radio. We're looking out for your questions on the chat, on the live chat, and as well on social media. If you have any questions, we're going to be happy to answer those questions.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
I've been faded, I've been naked, in different places, many faces, X-rated, I've been patient, I've been waiting, no other one that's come around can do the things you do. Who keep come around, we smoke a lot, Canadian pot, G's and bomb, catch a wine, dance bounce along, baby, bounce along. Wine and dine, made your mind, it's a clear sign that no other one that's come around can do the things you do. Nobody else can match my energy. Cheesy come my yeah. Cheesy come my yeah. We up all night and still we try to be busy on the AM. Cheesy come my yeah. Cheesy come my yeah. Cheesy come my yeah. Oh yeah. Cheesy come my yeah. Cheesy come my yeah.
I've been faded, serenaded, celebrated. Ooh, very patient. See, I'm not so complicated. Ooh, come on my mind. Your toes are juicy, align. Oh, you got bigger sign. Keisha underline. Only free because you let me be. That's the love I want for me. Long time was so baridi. Can't deny the chemistry. You got come on my mind. Took a alive. Took a bigger sign.
Nobody else can match my energy. Cheesy come my yeah. Cheesy come my yeah. We up all night and still we tryna be busy on the AM. Cheesy come my yeah. Cheesy come my yeah. Oh yeah. Cheesy come my yeah. Cheesy come my yeah.
And Zenia Manasseh with Cheesy. Fantastic song just to set you up for the weekend. We're almost done with this show, but I don't think you can actually end without talking about BBI. Evans, what in the BBI? What was happening with BBI?
Well, what was called the BBI, or the Building Bridges Initiative, was basically a political alliance where politicians grouped, and the intention was to broaden government so that positions could be created to accommodate political interests.
Yeah, and I know you handled this BBI case from the High Court to the Court of Appeal all the way to the
Supreme Court.
So, of course, the Supreme Court decision is binding on everyone. What did the Supreme Court say? I remember that time we were all talking about basic structure. What is a basic structure? But what did the court say about how to amend Kenya's constitution?
Well, basically what the Supreme Court said was that, remember, the argument that had been sustained by the High Court and Court of Appeal was that Kenya had a basic structure. Basic structure, for the non-lawyer listeners, this was an argument that we got from some professor from Germany called Dietmar. And then Professor Dietmar convinced the Indians. The Indians, due to problems between parliament and the judiciary created what they called the basic structure doctrine, meaning that you can amend the constitution, but there are certain aspects of the constitution that are eternal. You cannot amend them. So like the structure of the government, the concept of democracy, the case of Kesavananda, these ones, the courts in India had said you cannot amend. And that is the kind of argument that was being made here in the BBI. My good friend Nelson Harvey was arguing the basic structure argument. Unfortunately, that did not succeed at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says the basic structure does not apply to us. And indeed, the Supreme Court overturned so many things with those petitions, because we had around, 7 petitions that had different questions. The Supreme Court sustained one petition in its entirety and bits of a second petition. That one petition, that was the petition I was arguing, was on constituencies. The government of the day then had sought to introduce some 27 or so constituencies that were brought in irregularly, contrary to Article 88 and 89 of the Constitution. And that is what the Supreme Court upheld and said this irregular introduction of constituencies without subjecting it to public participation, without following Article 88 and 9 is unconstitutional, and by that very fact alone, the whole bill is unconstitutional. So we will see a repeat of that again.
So you're saying the likelihood is that there will still be further efforts to try and amend this constitution?
Yes, that we will certainly see. You have certainly had politicians somewhere speak of the president is too young. He needs to be given 2 extra years to the 5 years. So he needs 7 years. You've also had, and some, not all amendments are necessarily bad, because there's a report that we need to sit down and look at carefully as a country. The Ouko Constitutional Audit Report. This was done by the former Auditor General, FCPA Ouko. The cost of running government was found to be too heavy. We have some devolved units that are not viable. There's also the argument that Nairobi should not be a county on its own due to political and historical challenges. They say, for example, we need to reduce the size of parliament, the counties, the number of MCAs. Some of these constitutional commissions, for example, TSC is a service commission only doing HR issues, employing teachers. If you look at the role of the TSC vis-a-vis Article 249, protecting the rule of law and constitutionalism, how does your role as HR commission support rule of law and constitutionalism. So some of these questions we can have, but in a calm manner without the usual politics, because part of the problem with sorting out our economic mess will certainly involve addressing corruption, yes, and reducing the size of government. We also need, for example, to consider Article 104, the recall clause. We need to give the Monanchi more enumerated power under 104 to guard in the context of how do we recall our MPs and in what manner, so that we don't leave it to the MPs to decide the manner and process of recalling them. So those are conversations we can have.
Yeah.
But certainly, let's not leave it to the politicians, because they always do things for their selfish ends.
Of course, Emily, Katiba went to court to challenge the recall laws, and the court said that the law that had been passed by Parliament was making it extremely difficult for voters to recall their members of Parliament. I know that there are efforts at the moment to collect signatures in, especially I think Kabete constituency is on high gear on that. The IBC has not been constituted, so you're going to also just be looking at that. But Emily, just as part of your parting shot, what opportunities do you think lie ahead, even as we look maybe to the next 14 years or the next 10 years of this constitution? What are some of the opportunities that exist for citizens?
I know Ogada has spoken a lot about the civic space and in terms of civic and civil and political rights and devolution and governance to that aspect. But I want to talk about issues that actually also touch to the core of the day-to-day life and livelihood of Kenyans. We're looking at cases coming up on the right to food, seed sovereignty, and food sovereignty that affects how people eat, how people survive, the right to quality food that is not determined by a multinational company and takes out their cultural dependence on food and seed, the right to health to the extent of getting accessible, accessible, both physical as well as the resources within some of these facilities to allow people to enjoy the right to health fully, beyond even the insurance. Are they in facilities where they can't access ambulances to take them to, for example, a clinic and a level 4 hospital for a woman to give birth? Are those still challenges for people that here in Nairobi we don't think about? Consumer protection, there are issues about Starlink and Safaricom. And the right to consumer protection that now the people are waking up and saying, is it our right? Allegedly, if there's an issue, let me put that disclaimer. But consumer protection issues are arising. And finally, what will continue haunting us, and that was a very contentious issue in our constitution, is a land question. The land question, especially for community land titling, will continue haunting us because the National Land Commission is yet to finalize on historical land injustice claims where they have a reduced period of time within to do it and apparently no financial resources to do over, I think there are more than 3,000 claims that have been put across the country. So it will keep haunting us if we don't deal with the land question. And again, like you said earlier, the gender question. We'll keep quiet about it. But I think with every cycle of election, if it's a case we will always file, it will always be a case on the gender issue. If it's by CREW, Crown Trust, all these organizations that are trying to champion for positions for women in elective positions of women and the realization of the 2/3 gender, both in elective and appointive positions, those are things. And the environment and climate change will impact us. Has it been impacting us since time immemorial? Yes, but now with Kenya being the first country globally passing a climate finance law or regulations, you call people anywhere in the world, they don't know. We were the first country in the world passing regulations on climate finance. But are we having instances where people, is it colonization?
Yes, that one.
Second time where you haven't realized community land rights. You're introducing conservation to take land that belongs to these vulnerable communities in the name of climate finance. So those are questions that will definitely peg and plague. It will peg and plague the state, people, devolved governance, private bodies and private facilities, because it's like everyone is scrambling to try get a bite at whatever is left.
Wow.
Yeah.
Evans, parting shot. What does the future look like?
I am hopeful and I put my trust in the people of Kenya. Let us keep vigilance. Don't be cowed. Don't be intimidated. The future is bright for us, despite the political climate not being conducive. Kenyans, let's keep at it. Let's keep fighting.
Fantastic. And of course, remember, if you'd like to follow Evans on X, on social media, Evans, what's your handle?
E. Ogada, that's on X. Evans Ogada on Meta or Facebook.
Yes, at E. Ogada on X and Evans Ogada on Facebook. And for you, Emily, what's your handle?
I'll start first with the organizational handle.
Yes.
Follow Katiba Institute.
Yes, at Katiba Institute.
At Katiba Institute.
Yes.
On TikTok, we have a TikTok page.
Oh,
So
nice.
go follow TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And my Twitter handle is Emily Nyiva.
At Emily Nyiva. Fantastic. You know what they say, all good things must come to an end. And our time here has run out. This has been fantastic. So much knowledge has been gained and shared. I'd just like to appreciate both Evans and Emily, as well as Kasichana in absentia. Thank you so much for making the trip. And
my condolences to Kasichana. We forgot to say that. My condolences to her.
Yes, of course. Kasichana, sending love to you. And we're praying, even as you lay your grandmother to rest, we're behind you, and we're praying for all of you and your family. Asanteni sana. You guys have a lovely weekend. Remember, it's sunny out there, and as I always say, it looks like shorts and sundress weather, so make use of it. Please leave the house. Guys, leave the house. For the sake of your mental health, you need to see what's happening out here. Leave the house. And of course, football fans, I think you have a cracker of games coming up this weekend. Asanteni sana. That's it from us here at Pawa Radio, right here on this Sheria Dive show. We'll be back here on Monday between 5 and 6 as we continue to talk more law. Thank you to Flozy and Kate in the studio who've been helping us with the production. From us, it is Kwaheria Kuonana. God bless you and keep you.
Thank you.
Pawa Radio. Tune in and power up.
Steady rocking on the midnight train. Steady rocking on the midnight train. Oh Lord, steady rocking on the midnight train. To Zion, to Zion. Hii maisha ni safari, tunapita kama moshi, na kabla tuzame mchangani kuna kushinda na kufeli. Oh, inabidi ujijue tofauti ya mwalimu na mwanafunzi ni ujuzi na ujuaji. Oh, it's unbelievable that we make it this far. Undeniable, we see the promised land from afar, and it's so beautiful. No, they can't touch the fire, and you know it's not in vain. Steady tripping through the pain. Oh, man. Steady rocking on the midnight train. Steady rocking on the midnight train. Oh Lord, oh Lord. Steady rocking on the midnight train. Steady rocking on the midnight train. On the midnight train. Siku zazidi badilika, mengi yazidi kunipita jama. Oh no, maji yalipozidi unga, hawakudhani tutafika fika. It's unbelievable that we made it this far. Undeniable to see the promised land from afar. So beautiful, they gon' know who we are. They keep on walking.
we're moving to Zion, to Zion, to Zion. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Rocking on the midnight train. Steady rocking on the midnight train. Oh, Lord, steady rocking on the midnight train. To Zion, to Zion, to Zion, to Zion. Steady rocking on the midnight train. Steady rocking on the midnight train. Oh Lord, steady rocking on the midnight train. To Zion, to Zion.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.